Hey guys, this is Jessie, and you're listening to the Curious Cabinet Podcast. So, today I wanted to talk about the murder of 8-year-old Madyson Middleton. On July 26, 2015, 8-year-old Madyson Middleton, otherwise known as Maddie, went outside to play with some of the other kids who lived at the Tannery Arts Center apartment complex. But when Maddie didn't return home, when Laura, her mother, had expected her to, she really began to worry. Laura went door to door asking if anybody had seen Maddie, but the last time anyone had seen her had been around 4 p.m. It wasn't unusual for Maddie to be out of sight for a little bit, but as it got later and there was still no sign of Maddie, Laura decided she needed to call the police. It was around 6 p.m. when Laura had actually called the police to report Maddie missing. The Santa Cruz Sheriff's Department sent out a search and rescue team, and when everybody heard that Maddie was missing, many people volunteered to come and search the apartment complex as well as the San Lorenzo River and other nearby beaches and wooded areas. They even had a canine unit come out to help support the efforts, but there was still no sign of Maddie anywhere. The next day, the police released some more photos of Maddie to the public, to see if there was any new leads or anything like that. They released a surveillance video that they had of Maddie riding her Razor scooter outside of the parking garage from the day before, which was taken around 5 p.m. And this was on July 27th. At 11 a.m., they officially declared Maddie's case a missing persons case. Having followed up with all the possible leads they could and having no extra clues as to where Maddie might be, they had contacted the FBI for help. The FBI sent out 50 agents and began to search door to door at the apartment complex, searching in trash bins and asking residents to open their vehicles in the parking garage so they could search their cars in case she was maybe hiding in there or, if somebody had done something. At 7:55 p.m., Santa Cruz Police Detective David Braxton was searching the property of the apartment complex. He checked inside one of the trash bins and the recycle bins, only to find a small hand sticking out of a plastic bag inside of the recycle bin. Inside, he found Maddie's lifeless body. Santa Cruz Police Department stated that the killer had gone to great lengths to hide the body, and that Maddie's body was concealed and hidden in a way that was not obvious or readily apparent. So I guess it was covered up and everything like that, so you couldn't really see it. That night, 15-year-old Adrian Gonzalez was taken in for questioning by the Santa Cruz Police Department. Adrian lived with his mother at the apartment complex and he knew Maddie. Adrian initially denied any involvement, but something seemed really off about his answers, which were hesitant, odd, and lacking any type of detail. Police had noted early on in the investigation that Adrian's demeanor during the search was way more calm than the rest of the search party, who were obviously frantic and worried because they couldn't find Maddie. He asked a lot of questions to his neighbors, also in a very calm manner, which they noticed, about how the investigation was going, and the police believed that he did this to avoid becoming a suspect. They also noticed him standing by the dumpster where Maddie's body had been found, kind of observing what the police were doing or if, they were getting any further into the investigation. And they had evidence of Maddie's belongings, witness statements, and surveillance evidence. When eventually admitting to the murder, so trigger warning here for sexual assault, and this is horrifying. Adrian had told the police that he lured Maddie to the apartment where he lived by promising her ice cream. That's so sad. This is horrifying. As a parent, I fear something like this all the time. He then, at the apartment, covered her mouth and bound her hands with duct tape. After that, he strangled her for 30 minutes. Like, 30 minutes is like a normal person's drive to work. I couldn't imagine like what was going on in her mind for 30 minutes. Somewhere within this time period, he had raped her. And then when he realized that she wasn't dead yet because she started making gasping sounds and other noises, he decided to stab her multiple times in the neck. Like, it's just so horrible. And this is a 15-year-old boy, and she's 8. He then took her body and put it in a plastic bag, put it in, and then took it into the large-scale recycle bin outside. This is the surveillance video that the police had. They had him carrying a bag down the stairs, and it seemed like it was a very heavy bag. So that's why they believed that Maddie's body was in that bag. He had tried to clean up the apartment, so there was no blood evidence, but I believe there was like a couple drops of blood they found in there. And they found Maddie's scooter as well. I don't know where, but it must have been like in his apartment somewhere. It doesn't really say anywhere. A lot of this information wasn't really accessible because they were underage when it happened. So there was no public court records or anything like that. So I was just going off of the different news websites and articles that I have found. I couldn't really find any actual court records or police reports. The medical examiner determined that she was likely unconscious from being strangled when she was stabbed, but ultimately she had died of positional asphyxiation due to her arrangement in the recycling bin. Adrian told police he was curious about killing and that he had acted on impulse and was also struggling with mental health issues. I'm pretty sure he dealt with a lot of issues in his early childhood. I know that he had moved something like 35 times by the time he was 11. So he was just all over the place, and he obviously had mental health issues. But, I mean, he kind of sounds like he knew he was going to try and claim insanity. So he was like, oh, I'm having mental health issues. I mean, yeah, obviously if you rape and stab an 8-year-old, you're having mental health issues. During the interrogation, he wrote a letter to Maddie's mom saying that his actions were reckless, unlike me, spontaneous, and permanent, expressing regret, but also acknowledging that Maddie's mom most likely hated him. Well, yeah, rightfully so, she hates you. Shortly after Maddie's murder, California voted on a law that prevents 14 and 15-year-olds from being tried as adults. So when Adrian turned 18, a Santa Cruz Superior Court judge had held a 9-week hearing that said Adrian was fit for adult proceedings. Rightfully so, he should have been. He was then transferred from the juvenile detention center to Santa Cruz County Jail. But once this law went into effect, I believe he was 19 when it did, he had his public defender appeal the decision and then was sent back to juvenile detention center. Adrian's public defender, Larry Bigham, said kids who commit serious crimes and get treatment behave better when released than kids who don't. It's common sense, but it is also supported by studies and data. The adult imprisonment of juveniles increased their reoffending compared to those who were sent to juvenile facilities. I don't know. In a case like this, I feel like this should be a case-by-case thing because it doesn't work for like murder. Like maybe it works for theft or something, but I would assume that, I don't know, murder is pretty serious. I don't understand why they would put him back in a juvenile, especially when it involved everything that involved. Like, it's just crazy. In April of 2021, when the case was transferred back to juvenile court, Adrian Gonzalez, who was 21 years old at the time, pleaded guilty to Maddie's murder. He was convicted of 6 felony counts, including murder, kidnapping, sexual penetration, 2 counts of lewd and lascivious behavior and intercourse with a minor, plus misdemeanor destruction of evidence. That kind of conviction would normally have someone in prison for 2 consecutive life terms, but the California law says that he would be eligible for his release from the juvenile detention center at the age of 25. Adrian was on his way to be released when he turned 25 in October of 2024, but the Santa Cruz district attorney challenged that rule. In July of 2024, he returned to court to determine whether he should be released from the juvenile detention back into society. The hearing lasted 4 days over a span of about 3 weeks. Chief Deputy District Attorney Tara George argued that Adrian was still a risk to society. In her argument, she highlighted his history of lying and psychological disorders, the brutality of the murder, and his calmness afterwards, like how he intentionally hid the body, cleaned up his mess, and helped the police, and like nothing had ever happened. His public defender, Athena Rice, argued that he had been rehabilitated. Testimony from corrections officers and probation officers described him as pleasant and confirmed that he had been taking anger management classes and therapy classes. He also hadn't been violent within his time in the juvenile detention center, so they categorized him as low risk in the months coming up to the trial. But despite their efforts, the jury ruled that he was unfit to be released back into society, and he will remain in the juvenile detention center, but only for another 2 years. So this is something that the family and the friends all have to go through, like every 2 years, because that's when they reevaluate it, since he was tried as a juvenile. It's kind of crazy because like that's so awful that the family has to constantly go through this. And I don't know, like he pled guilty, so he is guilty of this crime. Like there's no doubt. It's just, I don't know. I really feel like people who commit crimes against children deserve the harshest life sentence. And that's just my opinion, because I don't know. It's crazy. This poor girl was only 8 years old, and her life was taken away from her in a very awful and gruesome manner. But we'll see. Hopefully he doesn't get out when he's 27. Hopefully he's in there for a while, but I don't know. Well, thanks for listening. Check my episode out next week. I'm going to try to post one every Tuesday. Let me know if there's anything you want to hear me cover, or any cases or interesting stories or anything like that. Thanks, guys.